So tonight we will be listening to the first episode of Hiberno Goethe, German-Irish Conversations. This is our new podcast series produced in collaboration with Near FM. And the conversations are all in English. And the first episode, which you will be listening tonight, is with the guest mezzo-soprano Sharon Carty. Who is here. Thank you very much, Sharon, for coming in.
My pleasure.
Because you have a tight schedule. You will be performing tonight later.
That's right.
In Maynooth.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, yeah, and it's very appropriate because it's German repertoire. It's going to be a beautiful concert of Bach arias by Johann Sebastian Bach in the beautiful church in Maynooth University. So they're celebrating their 225th anniversary this year. So it's to celebrate that and Culture Night, and both John O'Keefe, the organist, who will also play in the concert, and we both absolutely adore the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. So I'm really looking forward to it.
The podcast is addressed to listeners who like to go and think beyond borders. You were the first guest, and what do you think, what else might be interesting for listeners? Why should they be tune in?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting, the idea of borders. Obviously, I guess the reason you guys invited me was because I've lived in German-speaking countries for over half of my adult life, actually, at this stage. So it's not only a geographical border, but also the topics that we covered in the podcast went into music and culture and art and Netflix. That was one of the things we ended up talking about, how having a second language like German means that you can watch so many more interesting series during lockdown on TV, which was one of the things. So there's more than the geographical borders. It would also kind of transcended to all sorts of different ones as well.
So we're looking forward to listening to that in a short while. One last question, perhaps. How did you feel when you were talking about your German experience with Ciarán? How would you express this in musical terms?
Oh, in musical terms, it maybe wouldn't have been the most organised piece of music, I think, if we were talking about it in musical terms. But I love talking about, I love the German language, so to get to speak about it and its impact on my life and the doors it has opened for me in terms of friendships, both musical and personal, career options, to be able to work in countries like Austria and Germany and be able to speak the language is a completely different experience than, going as an English speaker and having everything translated. So it was lovely to kind of reminisce in the conversation about how the language has impacted my life in an amazingly positive way, in many different ways, many of which were, I suppose, unexpected. And I still have lots of conversations with my German-speaking, my native speaker friends who are in Germany and Austria now, and many of them also speak really excellent English. And there's a really wonderful thing that happens, that when you speak to someone who speaks perfect English and perfect German, you can kind of use both languages, but then also throw in a word from the opposite language if there's not an appropriate word in the language you're using, and it would be immediately understood, and it just makes communicating so much more rich, which it's one of the things I've loved about having my second language of German.
Well, thank you so much for also introducing the podcast, and we'll listen to it now.
Great. I hope your listeners enjoy.
Good luck with your concert later tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.